Hello everyone, I hope you are enjoying this training. Today we are gonna talk about debts. So I'm gonna share my screen and here we go. So let's first remember what is not a debt because sometimes we can be using credit, but not necessarily we are getting a debt. So when we are use credit to pay, but it is backed by our budget, and we pay in the same month, there is no real debt. We are basically using that credit as an instrument for something. But if we didn't have that credit, we would be paying that with our debit card or with our cash. The key here is that we actually have the money for the things and we are going to pay quickly this credit. So why we would do that? We got into this very deep in the previous session when we talk about the credit score. So if you haven't watched it, just go to the other class, to the credit score, and get very deep on that. But we basically can use credit for two reasons. Because we want to earn rewards, because we want to get cash back or points or miles or access to phone insurances or travel assistance or things like that that basically are mostly given by credit cards. So we want to use those perks, but also because we are using that as an instrument to increase our credit score. So everything is super detailed in that session, but just remember that there are different ways to build our credit score, and one of them is getting into the credit system and using it well. So those when we are using credit for those two reasons, we should have that money backed by our budget. And then we are using this credit as an instrument to win points or credit score or other perks, but not to get unhealthy debt. So in this case, we are basically just it's like giving to something to please pay for me these things, like an intermediate step, but we don't depend on that to have those services or goods. And in that case, we are not really getting a debt. So don't get confused on that. If you are doing your budget and you are using your credit card or some type of credit to pay something that is in your budget, that is not a debt as far as you pay back in the same month because you had that money for that. If you had the money but you spend it in other thing and then you got the debt, then it is a debt. But if you, as I do, for instance, if I pay an utility bill with my credit card and then in 2 weeks I pay back to a credit card because the money is in my bank, but I'm using these instruments to get points, then there is no debt. So please keep that in mind because in that way you are not going to get confused on when it's a debt and when it's not. Even though you are using credit in both scenarios, in one you are using it as an instrument, but you are going to pay back because the money is already budgeted. So that in that case, there is no debt. If we are going to actually get a debt, we need to understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. Some people in finances don't believe in this differentiation. I'm going to explain and then you decide what you think. But I truly feel that there is a difference and we have to be mindful about it. Maybe not only focusing on the financial part, but the whole meaning of things. And then we have this middle ground between thinking of things financially and also thinking of them as a human being, which has all the areas of life and parts of the self integrated in all decisions. So a good debt is the one that generates income or increases value over time. So we have to check the risk of that. The more sure we are about the benefits or the return of the value, the better. A good debt is one that helps us accomplish significant growth in our personal life or in our finances. Even better if it's both. It can be, for instance, to reduce the cost of current debts like debt consolidation, to maintain or increase value over time. For instance, most of the time we have heard this with houses, like houses, we purchase a house and then houses increases value. Not always, but a lot of times we can see this, so we have to make sure about it. But this is an example of something that you get, but then it increases value over time. Can be something that generates income, that frees up capital for investment, that offers future benefits. And here is where it becomes a bit between finances and not finances, but at the same time, it's a financial decision. So we have to really think if those benefits overweights the cost of the debt or not. It should have a low interest rate, all of them, and it should be in your capacity of payment. We are going to talk about that deeper in a bit. So the most important in a good debt is that the benefit is kind of predictable and is greater than the interest rate. And remember, the interest rate includes inflation in the calculations of the lenders. The good debts then return the cost of the debt at least. The bad debt, on the other hand, is the one that don't increase value over time. So let's make some examples. For instance, a car. We all know that a car might be necessary, might still be a need, but as soon as you get a car, normally the car starts losing the financial value. Same with clothes, with travels, with things for the house, with the TV, with the sofa. All these things are things that are consumption because as soon as we get them, the financial value start decreasing. So here is a quote that I heard somewhere, I don't remember where, but it catch me. And it said, the first house or the first car or the first thing that you um, get that is a milestone in your life, that is important to you, um, doesn't need to be the dreamed one. You can optimize those debts with that. And then you can increase from there. Remember, from this perspective of feeling as a millionaire is more about accessing the things, optimizing your resources, and then expanding from there than try to get the best as soon as you start and then maybe make a bad financial decision. So take that into account because maybe you can access, in the case of the car, for instance, maybe you need it for work or something like that, but maybe you can get one that is more within your resources, your debt capacity, or even better if you can save for that before and it's actually recommended. But in the case that you really need to get that through a debt, maybe you can optimize how much and everything because you don't need to get at first the dream car. You need just to get the one that actually you need. Save as much as you can for that, and if you still need to get it through a debt because of something that is reasonable, then apply all this knowledge to make the best financial decision for yourself. And then there is this quote from Mis Propias Finanzas that says, it's better that the last thing left to do is to enjoy, not to pay. So with these things that are consumption, imagine for a moment that you purchase your car and you don't owe anything, that you just have to enjoy it from there. Or that you go to a trip and you just have to enjoy it. You don't come back with the trip as a debt. You actually come back and keep going with your life. So those feelings are very good, right? If we access a good quality, good service. But with that provided, we can really focus on, okay, let's think how much we can actually focus on enjoying things instead of going quickly and then having these debts that are going to be stressful probably in our lives or are going to restrain what we can actually experience in the coming months, years. So the last thing left to do is better that is to enjoy what we are purchasing, not to pay, in the case of the bad debt, especially. And some people joke like, but this is bank money. And no, every debt is money from yourself, from your future self. So think if your future self would agree with this decision that you're making today. So let's go deeper into the good debt. The first debt that we all have, if we haven't built it yet, is our emergency fund, unexpected needs fund, peace fund, you name it as you want, but it answers to the randomness in life. Everyone has had unexpected needs. As far as I have asked, everyone has had. So this is not from anxiety or a bad vibe or not thinking abundant, is about being realistic. We all have randomness in life and we have to book for that ourselves. In the case of finances, this is through an unexpected needs fund, and that's how I like to name it. So if you pair this with a good budgeting, as we saw in the session of budgeting, including things that you can plan ahead, like things that you pay every 2 months, every 3 months, every 6 months, every year, and you also do a comprehensive budgeting, as I taught in the session of budgeting, where we actually go beyond what you remember and we actually take into account different areas of life comprehensively, then you're going to have to very good resources to prevent unhealthy debt. And is you are saving for future needs that you know that are coming, and you also have your unexpected needs fund. And this is going to help you in the randomness of life. And with those things, then you are kind of protected for having to face things without the resources to face them. This is critical because if we don't do these two things, then we are going to spend that money on other things. Even if they are good things, we are spending on other things because we are ignoring that these other situations are going to happen. So the first thing that you have to build is your unexpected needs fund. And if you have debts, you still have to do this at first, because that way, even though mathematically is not the best decision, psychologically it is, because it's gonna break your cycle of debts. So we are gonna talk about deeper, like different targets of this fund, the emergency fund, in the savings goals session. But for now, just keep in mind that in dollars, the minimum for an emergency fund or unexpected needs fund, peace fund, is $500. And from there, it grows to different levels that are also important to take into account, but we are going to study in that session. So what other type of healthy debts we have? We have debts that, of course, as we just saw, return the value of the money, either directly or indirectly, as we talked before. But the other things that are very important is that is under your debt capacity, which means that you have debt around 10 to 15% of your income. Remember, in this training, I suggest that it's better to take these percentages from the net income because it's the money that we actually can handle. So you make the calculation, what is your net income and what is about the 10 to 15% of it, and then that's your ideal maximum debt. For what? For good debts, hopefully. If you really need to get into the debt or something like around 30% maximum, but you have to check this with your budget. The other thing that is super important is that if you have to actually have more debt, that it's 30% max from your income, super max, but also keep in mind how much is when you add your needs. Remember that it's important that needs and debts together are around 50 to 60% ideally from your budget. But if you really have to push it to the super max, then maximum 85% in total from needs and debts. Why? Because it gives a space for some fun, it gives a space for savings for emergency fund in case that you need to use it, you can put it back. If you already have the target and you haven't used it, then you have extra money to pay your debts. But we should let the space of randomness of life happen. And then it also gives a space for saving for retirement. So when you push through that limit, then these things are going to decrease somehow, and you have to be mindful of that. So keep in mind your debt capacity, and then you can make a decision of what is your maximum for that. Understand the cost of the debt. It means the interest rate and the length, how many years you're going to have that percentage of your income committed to that debt. Avoid high interest rates like loans versus credit cards. Check which is a better strategy. Some people pay things that are important in their lives through credit cards, which has the most expensive interest rate, when they could actually go to a bank and get a loan and have a less interest rate. So keep that in mind. Make banks compete for you, like really uh, go to different shop around, like go to different banks, institutions, credit unions to ask for this loan that you need and make them compete. Even saying like I reach to this level with this institution, what do you think is best? The way that is best for you. Renegotiate or transfer your debt. Um, but of course, when you are gonna sign a loan or something that is for accessing these debts, double check any hidden costs, for instance, closing costs or not being able to pay in advance the loan or things like that. So be very mindful of any hidden cost or limitations that you may have. Um, and these things about making the banks compete for you, you can ask for a rate review every 3 to 6 months, or when central banks drop the interest rates by 1 to 2%. And you can also ask for loyalty-based rate reduction. So this all is going to be more likely if your credit score has improved. So if you want to see strategies about that, go to the session for the credit score. And remember that the more secure your return, the more peace of mind with the debt. So if you have a business idea that you want to get this to invest, let it grow its roots. Let it show you that it's ready to be successful before you just jump into an idea that doesn't have any soil, any roots. If you wanna go to a travel, then save for that travel, and then the last thing is gonna be to enjoy it. Make sure that you can actually pay back, for instance, your student loan. Don't get more than you actually wanna be paying, right? Maybe be a strategic, maybe a public program that is cheaper is gonna good to start, is gonna be good to start, and then you can, after you work and earn some money and save, maybe you can access other type of education in the future. Like, you have to really think of these trades off and make sure that you're choosing the best for you. And remember also that banks still work as companies for profit. So don't believe in their marketing. They usually send a lot of temptations regarding to credit. So think it through, remember this marketing, and breathe deep and let go what is not healthy for you. And if you already have a debt, how to pay off the debt. What you have to do is to take into account that there are two strategies that exist nowadays, and it's the snowball strategy and the avalanche strategy. In the snowball, you start with the smaller debt, and then you go to the bigger next, and then the bigger next, and then the bigger next. And this way, you create a paying power that is increasing over time because every time that you get rid of one debt, you have more money to pay the next. And this is very good psychologically because you are achieving things and next and the next and the next, and you have this sense of progress and motivation and momentum. Whereas the other one is the avalanche, where you start with the bigger one and then you go for the smaller ones, also order from the bigger to the smaller. In this way, you take longer to pay off your first debt, but once you achieve that, you achieve a lot because then you have a big a big paying power, and then it gets through the whole avalanche. That's a big shot of achievements, very close, but then a lot of delay maybe in the first achievement. Whereas the snowball starts with little achievements and they're increasing the achievements, which is more harmonic with the progress that we pursue in life, that we also pursue in dreams, and that we also live while growing up as human beings. So that's why it's usually in trainings and books everywhere is more recommended the snowball strategy, because in this way you actually have this motivation going on and these achievements going on, and this is one part where the psychology helps more than in the other one, unless your personality really feels excited about the other one. This is the one that normally is best for people in general. So in this strategy, you start with the smaller amount, but to do that, you need to organize your debts in a table and check the amounts total, organize from the smaller to the bigger, and put in next your interest rates, so that maybe you check which ones are more expensive, or maybe if there is something that is triggering and call it attention because it's way more expensive, this debt, and then you will have to make the calculations of what is best to start with. But in general, what we do is using the total amounts, just have the reference of the interest rates in case that we need to double check something, and then we put the minimum payments that we have today, or in the moment that you are doing this table, um, what are the minimum payments mm, in each one. Here, something that is super important is that once you start your strategy, you keep the same minimum payments for the whole strategy. You don't decrease them, because the debts like credit cards or this type of revolving debts, they go in time reducing the minimum payment as you pay, right? Assuming that you are not getting into more debt, which is the idea if you are deciding to pay your debts. So you are gonna, in revolving debts, you start with a minimum payment officially, but then the institution is gonna decrease it as you pay off debt, because the principal debt reduces, then your interest rates reduces a bit, and then the problem with this is that you're gonna spend longer time paying these minimums, and probably, very likely, you're gonna be paying a lot more debt in interest. So the idea is to shorten up this time by assuming that if you are paying today these minimums, you can take these as the minimums for the whole process. This is a very critical strategy. The key point is, if you are organizing these minimums today the way they are, then you can stick with them. And that way, every month, yes, you are paying the minimum payments as of today. And by doing so, you are also getting rid of the principal debt quicker. So in summary, make your table or your in your paper, in your budget, wherever you want, in another page, order your debts. Put next the interest rates in case you need to double check something. Put next the minimum payments that are of today. And then create your strategy maintaining these minimum payments as the ones for the whole paying process of the debts. One important thing here is that this applies for all the debts except for mortgages, because these ones have more a nature of an investment, but at the same time they are big, they are longer. So this one is taken differently. The way that you do this is more about your budgeting in general and how you do your strategy between your investments, which we are going to talk about in the last session that you will have access after you send your testimonials. And then the key takeaway here is this applies for all your debts except for the mortgage. And the most important thing also to remember here is that if you don't have your emergencies or unexpected needs fund, then this is gonna be your first debt. The first one is to yourself. So in that calculation, in that table, put your safety fund, emergency fund, job safety fund, peace fund, however you want to call it, this unexpected needs fund or job transition fund to your first debt. Like, okay, my minimum of this fund is $500 or $1,000. We are going to talk about these goals more deeply in the next session. But this is the first target that you're going to have, because this fund is the one that is going to stop unhealthy debts that come from unexpected needs. So this is the one that you want to keep full and that you want to keep always as your first savings, and that is going to be there for the whole process of paying the debts. Because then if you have any unexpected need, you have this fund to face it without getting into more debt, and then psychologically feeling that you are always going to be trapped in this debt. Whereas if you have this special fund of initial savings, then you are not going to be facing those things, and you're going to feel that you are actually getting out of debt, because the debt is one problem and the unexpected needs is already covered. And once you have started, like, okay, the safety fund first, and then the other payments that you have, the other debts that you have, organized as I said, then you can start. Once you have, you always pay the minimum that we established in the beginning the whole time, and then the extra that was going to the safety needs fund at first, then this extra you can start paying in the smaller debts, and then the next, and then you continue until you have get rid of all your debts that are different than the mortgages. So while you are doing this process, it's important that you motivate yourself on paying these debts. You can use gratitude for what was experienced or what is growing right now. If you, for instance, have these debts because of a travel, maybe yes, you can learn to save first for the travels, but you can also feel this gratitude for what you lived before, while you are restraining yourself in the present to be able to pay back this money for an experience that you already lived. Or if you studied, then you can be applying this and remember that you have this better, hopefully, present and income because of that education that you got, or things like that. So along with gratitude is also self-reflection, because we can have both at the same time. We can feel like, okay, I could have done this better, but I also can be grateful for what I lived before. So this is these both are together at the same time. They feel like contradictory, right? Because if I made a mistake or I didn't optimize better my resources at the moment, or I chose a bad debt at the moment or something like that, yes, we need to learn that. But at the same time, we can appreciate what we had because now, yes, we are more restricted, but in the past, we had this access and we can feel grateful for that and also self reflect and grow from that. And focus on your future well being, enjoy the paying process. Every time that you pay something, enjoy it, celebrate it, of course, under your finances, your healthy finances, but focus and enjoy. There are also parallel strategies that you can use to optimize this paying process. The first one is transfer debts at better rates. Like if you find a promotion or you can shop around, this is especially great when your credit score has improved a bit, because you have shown a good behavior to the credit system. Then you can transfer debts at better rates. And but even in your current debt and in potential debt transfers, always make sure on how you can add to the principal amount owed. This is depending on the institution, this is automatic or not. So you need to make sure that any extra payment that you do is not just taking for the next balance payment that they are going to charge you, but that the money actually goes to the principal owed if that's what you're looking for. Then you can also check debt transfers within institutions or credit cards, but try to not do the full consolidation, like having, I don't know, if you have 5 debts or 3 debts, put all in one debt, even though maybe you can find better rates. And if you do the math properly, maybe you realize that you actually save some money. The cost is psychological because it's different that you have 3 debts and you achieve paying one and then the next and then the next, than having one big where your payments don't feel really like impactful. So play it properly, like this balance between transferring debts to better rates, being able to add money to the principal owed, and how to make this progress feel worth it and motivating during this snowball strategy, if that's what you're doing. You can, if you are a very responsible and respectful person, you can also ask a family member or a friend to give you a better rate. For instance, if the person has the money saved in a CD for, I don't know, 10% um, earns earnings, you can offer 11 or 15. If your rate is 20 or 30, this would be a win-win. Of course, if your rate of your interest is 4% and then the person is earning 10, you cannot offer anything better. But you can also play with that if you fully commit to paying back. Like, this strategy needs a full respect for the other human being. And then you can also check if there are microfinancing options or other better programs that help you either with what you are owing or maybe optimize other things that you are paying, and then help you have more money to pay your debts. There are also some forgiveness help programs through the government or similar programs from other organizations. So, uh, depending on what is the nature of your debt, check if there is any help or forgiveness program. For that, there are also the IDA accounts, which are individual development accounts or program savings that grow your savings more than the interest rate. This is only worthy if that's the case. Like, if, for instance, saving this money, there are IDAs that I have heard of where you put some money and they multiply 6 times what you saved. In this case, of course, maybe you can hold it a bit and then pay a lot. You have to do these calculations and also check if that's available for you, according to your finances and your situation, context, and programs around. There are also NGOs or assistance programs where you live, where you study, where you work, maybe for financial hardship, for debt repayment, for assistance with other type of expenses, scholarships, things like that. So check around. There are also ways like crowdfunding that you can check around to ask for support from the community in general, if that's something that you want to do because your debts make sense to do that. And the most important thing here is, of course, you're here, you have to chop around, check things, make calculations and things like that. So make sure that the time that you invest on these things and the money that you're gonna save is they are balanced, they are worthy for the effort, and don't create or grow bad debts, unhealthy debts. And in the worst case scenario, if you are considering bankruptcy, you will have to check how it works, where you owe the money, and take into account that they are gonna still try to make you pay as much as possible with your things, with what you have access to. They are gonna try to really make you pay in any way possible with whatever you have or access you have. Your credit score is gonna drop a lot. And the decision remains in the credit history for at least 7 years, which may impact rent, employment, future credits that you need. So really double check these things. So to integrate this session, you're gonna organize your strategy, organize your debts, as we said, in the snowball way, or if you like it, the avalanche. Also check, have a record of what is owed to you. If you're using the digital version, you can go here into the page that says balances, and you're gonna find the space to put your debts and what is owed to you here to keep track of that. And then if you are using paper, just take a paper where you are going to organize the balance of the debts. Remember, these are only true debts, not things that are budgeted. Because if you are paying something with your budget, remember that it should come from what you already have budgeted here. If you want, you can actually add something like credit score. Or a name that you like, and then maybe you can add like an asterisk or something, or which credit card you're using to pay that, or use a strategy that I use, and is to type on the credit card the categories that I can use it for, or maybe with a tape or something. You can choose if you prefer that. And then after you have organized your true debts, you can decide how you're gonna do the payments. So you're gonna also double check how much is that in your income. So you're gonna come to the budget and you're gonna decide how much you're gonna be paying monthly for those debts that are beyond the within the month payments. And then you are gonna double check the percentage of the income that you are using for debts and for the monthly needs or present needs. If you are doing in paper, you can simply do that also, like take you the page that you are using for your budget and add a section that is gonna also consider how much you're gonna progress in your debts payments. And the last thing that I'm gonna propose you to do is to also decide how to motivate yourself. You're gonna put something in the walls, you're gonna do something that you like, make quotes, pictures, something that really can motivate you through the path of paying your debt. So I hope you learned a lot and you can really organize yourself with debts or help someone in your community or your closest ones, your close ones to handle debts, to choose the good ones, and to avoid having financial stress caused by debts. And please let me know what is your key takeaway. You can put it in the chat or in the comments. Hope you have a very good relationship with debts and that you can choose the best ones if you ever decide to get one, uh, and you can handle them better. So I hope you have a great rest of your day or your night whenever you're seeing this. Have a good one.